Hello everyone and welcome back to the Painted Springs Garage YouTube channel. So today I've got a special video for you. It's kind of a two-in-one video where I am fixing some string trimmers or weed whackers you might call them. So today I've got two. I've got an Echo that I picked up from a friend and I've got a Troy Bilt that I picked up from the curb. And I want to see if we can get them both running and get them onto some new homes. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Painted Springs Garage. So today I'm working on a Echo trimmer or weed whacker. This was a friend of mine. He bought it maybe 10 years ago or so. Used it for a while. More recently he started paying a yard service to do his lawn and they did all the trimming. So this hasn't been started in maybe 3 or 4 years or so. So we'll see today if I can get it started. I'm going to put a little bit of gas in it. If it does start, great. We'll tune it a little bit, try to get it running how it should, which I think we can. And if it doesn't start, then we'll figure out why and we'll get it started. So let's get to it. All right, so before I try to start this, there's a couple of things I want to make sure, that they're in the right position because it won't run if, if you got it set to off or the choke isn't on to start it cold. So first of all, I'm going to look at the on-off switch. Of course, this is how you shut it off when you're done using it. So if it's in the stop position, then it won't run. So there's no sense in trying to start it there. So I'll make sure that's in run. Then on the other side here, on the carburetor, there's an actual choke lever. So let's see, I think down is run and up is choked. So in order to start it, I want to make sure that the switch is not at stop and that the choke is turned on. And it's pretty warm out today, so I don't really need much choke. If it doesn't start on choke, then I'll turn the choke off and see if I can start it with the throttle open. Sometimes that helps during the warm weather. Then I'm going to prime it now that I have some fuel in here. And I can feel that there's some fuel moving. So that's good. So I'll give it a couple of bumps. Let's see, that's 3. Then I'm gonna pull the cord, see if it'll start. Well, that went a little bit easier than planned, but you know what? I'll take it because usually they're a fight. All I had to do was put some gas in it. It didn't like the choke on though, and I'm not surprised because it's close to 90 degrees out today. So as soon as I shut the choke off and it could breathe more, it fired right up. I'm going to put a little bit of time on this, go around the yard and trim some things up and make sure that's running okay. And if it is, then we're done with this one and on to the next. Well, everyone, that Echo line trimmer worked a lot better than I thought it would right out of the box, so to speak, or at least right out of the back of my truck from picking it up used from somewhere. So I have another trimmer here. This is a Troy Bilt that I picked up last fall. Haven't even tried to start it yet, just haven't had time to play with it. But this is a 4-stroke or a 4-cycle, and I've never had a 4-cycle weed whacker before, or really any of these, portable handheld power tools. So I actually picked this up the same place I picked up a Troy Bilt backpack leaf blower, which needed some work, but I got that to work well, and I use it regularly. So I'm optimistic about also getting this 4-cycle weed whacker, line trimmer, whatever you want to call it, started as well. With this, it does have some gas in it, so I'm not sure if it was running recently or somebody tried to get it to run before putting it out by the curb. But I'm going to drain that gas out of it and put fresh new gas in it and basically see if it starts up. So let's get at it. So now that we have some fresh oil in here, and this takes like 5 drops of oil, like almost nothing. I almost overfilled it just by a couple little whoop, oh, and it was full. So we got some fresh oil in here because it is, again, a 4-cycle, so it needs oil in the crankcase. And we've got some fresh gasoline in here. And again, because it's a 4-cycle, you don't mix the gas like you usually do on these, weed whips or small engines like this. You just put straight gasoline in it. So it's got some fresh stuff. At this point, the next thing is just let's see if it'll start without doing any maintenance on it. I'm hopeful that maybe it'll just fire up like the Echo did. So let's give it a try. All right, well, similar to the Echo, this one has a on-off switch here, but it's stuck in and on. It's spring-loaded. If you don't push it, it's on. You push it to turn it off. So of course that's on. Otherwise, I don't think that this even has a choke on it, just a primer bulb. So we'll push that, it says 10 times. See if we can get some fuel in here. So far, nothing for fuel. Let's try and push it faster. Wonder if our primer bulb doesn't work. That would be unfortunate. Alright, so we're not getting any priming, so I guess we'll just try to start it. And I'm just going to open the throttle a little ways to try and choke it and get some more fuel in. So this one is going to be a bit more difficult. So, it pulls pretty easy. So I can hear we've got some compression. But I want to try and get some fuel in here. So let's take a close look at this carburetor and the primer bulb and see if we have a fuel issue. So one thing I see out of the gate here is that although our fuel is pretty full, it's most of the way up the tank here, the inlet for the primer is just barely touching the surface of the fuel there. So that should be deeper, and I think we have enough green hose here where we can make it go in deeper. But even if I lean this whole thing sideways so that the end is submerged in fuel, it's still not picking up any fuel here. So we need to figure out why not. Maybe it's because the line to the carburetor is plugged and we can't get any suction at the primer bulb. So let's take that apart and see what's going on. So I figured this out. I think I figured something out kind of by mistake because I fed that green line down further into the gas tank just by pushing it from above here down into the tank. And in that process, that little blue guy fell off of there. And I don't really care so much about that. But I want to see if this primer works now that the green tube is in the fuel. So I push the primer and I've got absolutely nothing happening. But now it's not even pumping bubbles out of there. Before, when I pushed the primer, it would pump bubbles out the end. So I think what is happening is that little blue guy that fell off is like a one-way valve. And somehow I think it was installed backwards. So instead of the primer bulb pulling fuel through it and then pushing it to the carburetor, I think it was pulling air through the carburetor and pushing it out that blue thing. So I'm going to take this fuel tank off, figure out how to do that, and get that blue thing back onto this line, but oriented the correct way so that hopefully the primer can pull fuel. And honestly, if that is a one-way valve, and if it was on backwards, I think that would prevent the entire carburetor from pulling fuel through that hose. And I don't know that the carburetor would need to pull fuel through that anyhow because it has this other line here that goes to a different pickup in here. Let's see, you can kind of see past the green hose, there's another pickup in there. But even so, if that was on the wrong way and I can't get it primed, then that could keep it from starting. So let's get this fuel tank off and get all that reassembled and then see what happens from there. So I grabbed a chainsaw that I have torn apart, that's really just a parts deal, and said, you know what, I'm going to grab the one-way valve off of here, but there is no one-way valve. It's just the green hose that goes to the primer bulb over here. And that one seems to be working fine. So then I'm thinking, okay, well, if there's no one-way valve on the hose, then it's probably part of this valve assembly. So I pulled this out of, I took the weed whacker somewhat apart and pulled this out to try and figure out, do I have a leaking hose, or maybe they're on there wrong. And I think that they might be on here wrong. Let me show you what I mean. All right, so I've got this, the primer assembly that I pulled out, and this green hose is the one that goes in the gas tank. So here I just have a jug of water to do some experimenting with. So if I put this green hose clearly down into the water there, I would expect to push this and have the bulb fill with water and have some water just spraying out of those hoses, or at least one of them. But there isn't any. You can see that there's no water in the bulb here. So what if I plug one of these off and simulate things that the carburetor might be doing in the internal passages? And that makes no difference. And if I plug this one off, I got a couple little spurts there cleaning the fluid out, but no difference really. So now if I put, let's try this hose, put one of the black hoses in there and try it. So still nothing, but let's plug this off. And now my primer bulb just filled with water. And I think it's going to spray, yeah, it's spraying out of the green one. So look at that. So I think that these two hoses the green and the black may be swapped on here. And you know, picking up used equipment like this, I never take for granted that it's put together properly. If I'm picking up at the curb, somebody threw it away, it's very possible that they tried to take it apart and fix it previously. So I think in this case, somebody swapped a couple lines on this valve and got them backwards by mistake. So I'm going to swap those back around and put this back together and see if we can get this running. So I think that we may be on the right track here, because I just pulled this green hose off of, you can see that there's two fittings here that don't have a hose. I pulled it off of the longer of the two fittings, and it wasn't even seated on there quite all the way. But if you look at the hose itself, you can see you know, an area a little bit different color than the rest. So if I put that hose onto the shorter of those two fittings, it looks like it's supposed to be there. So, you know, my theory that somebody swapped these hoses around, I think may actually be correct here. So maybe they tried to clean the carburetor and took this apart in the process and just, you know, put the hose back on where they thought that they went. I don't know. But it looks like the green hose is supposed to be on the shorter line, and that makes sense since that appears to be the suction fitting, and you know, that was the hose that was actually sucking water when I tested in the jug. So let's get this back together, clean up that carburetor, and give it another try. So I got this back together, and I know I've made something better. I hope that I fixed it. So I'll give it a couple pumps here with the primer, and I'm gonna pull the throttle, and let's see if it'll start. More priming. I think we gotta get some fuel into the system. Gotta quit doing the thumbs up. I think that makes it stop running. It's trying to. Well, just like that, we've got two string trimmers that are running well. And the first one was kind of too easy. Again, I picked that up from a friend who was just getting rid of it because they hadn't used it. And all I had to do was put some new gas in it, and it fired up and it runs great. So that one was great. The next one I picked up at the curb. So somebody threw it away, apparently for a reason, because it wouldn't start. But after digging into it, all that I found was that somebody had switched some fuel lines, and that's all that it takes to make these things not start. So figuring that out and switching them back got it up and running. So, you know, before you go out and buy yourself a new string trimmer or, you know, pick up an electric one, you know, you can find these used gas ones around pretty cheap, and oftentimes they have a lot of life left in them. So I'm probably going to throw a spark plug in both of them and pass them on to some new homes with people who can enjoy them. So if you like this video, please check out the others on my channel. I've got some other small engine repair videos similar to this that you might find helpful and fun to watch. And have a great day.